7:32, and we'll, or maybe 33. So we'll start the committee meeting by having the pledge. 7:32, and we'll have the flag. Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. We have present
Jack Rutherford,
Drew Martin,
Marty Tar,
Dale Cook,
guests. We have the
Town Manager Bill Zolper,
town manager, Bill Zolper, and Kevin Zielinski from the R&D engineers, helping us today with, and I'm the chairman. First item is the adoption of the agenda.
so moved to adopt the agenda as written.
Second,
second.
seconds, okay. Now, oh,
should get another one.
we need an agenda.
Thank you.
We need approval of the November 8th, 2021 meeting minutes.
Have to have a vote on the agenda. Have to have a vote.
Oh, did we vote? Oh, we need to vote the adoption of the agenda. I'm sorry.
We moved in
We
second.
moved, okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Dale.
No problem.
Now, first item is to approve the November 8th, 2021 meeting minutes. Motion,
Motion.
Dale,
Motion to approve.
Jack,
And I'll second, but I have just a couple of comments.
Oh.
David Jazinski, I believe, is the liaison, right?
Yeah, I believe he is, and then there's Gary's on, right?
Yeah, but I mean, David's the liaison, right? I think we should say in the minutes, instead of calling him Commissioner Jazinski, call him Commissioner Liaison Jazinski. Because notice that he's the liaison to the commissioner from this committee, instead of just calling him Commissioner. Just a thought, I mean,
oh, okay, all right, yeah, that,
and in there, it indicated, may very well be my word, but it indicates there are funds available from CIB and grants. And I intended to say possibly funds, but minutes have to be what you actually said, so.
Yes, put possibly on everything, right?
No, it has to be what you said, not what you intended, because you could change them all the time if you intended things.
so what do we
I seconded, if the maker of the amendment will say that he'll amend the motion, maker of the motion will amend the motion to include those two changes,
Yeah, I have no problem amending my motion to make those two changes.
and I second that, so. Now we just take a vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
This is where public comments, this is where Bill gives us whatever he needs us to say.
So you have most of the information, Chairman, up on the wall over there on how much the projects are going to cost. We have Kevin here from Remington and Verdict to discuss those and answer any of your questions. We have approximately $573,000 currently in the infrastructure budget, as you have up on the wall. Just to note, we'll be doing some work on Bellevue Street at the end. We're working on a special project down there. There'll be more to follow on that. So if you're asked any questions about what we're doing on Bellevue Street on the ocean side, it's a special project that we're working on to clean up the end of the street.
Okay, thank you. Now we discuss and possibly vote on the options to reline or reconstruct stormwater assets on McKinley and Bayard Avenue. For everybody's convenience, I made up a wall chart here, more or less summarizing the proposal that came from R&B engineers. Like the relighting and reconstruction of McKinley and Bayard Avenues. And Kevin, if I misinterpreted, so be sure, just chime in and correct me, okay?
Will do.
The option one, clean TV and reline existing infrastructure, that includes both McKinley and Bayard.
No, actually, you have them reversed, if you don't mind. You asked me for both McKinley and Bayard, which is actually the bottom figures. And then when, Bill, you had asked me to just break out McKinley, those are the top figures. So if Mr. Tyler, you were just going to do McKinley at this time. If you notice the map here, a couple things I would like to point out. This structure there that's just coming off of SR1 on McKinley, structure 26. We are not able to determine at this time the pipe that comes out of that, if it connects with structure 27 or 29. And that was due to, we were able to access the pipe. However, heavy cleaning was needed to continue to clean it. And as we cleaned it, the infrastructure or the integrity of the pipe started to degrade. So we ceased operations because we were going to cause more damage than it was worth. The area that you had, Mr. Tyler, highlighted at the very end, that goes from structure 30 down to the outfall at 59, that was totally packed and was not accessible at all. And I believe we're going to need some direct permitting to get in there because you're down in the marsh area, if you will. But if we're just to do McKinley, we're able to clean that and find that the pipe integrity was suitable for relining, a candidate for relining. You're looking at $135,000 to do the relining of just McKinley of those structures from SR1 down to the outfall 59. If we were going to remove and replace, and we would be replacing with plastic pipe, same size in the same areas, if we remove and replace from SR1 down to the outfall, you're looking at 2.25, $125,000. I was asked to provide figures both ways, just in case the pipe and its integrity has completely failed, and we end up collapsing the street, which we do not want to do, and we would have to result in a replacement again with plastic pipe. That's the 2.25 figure. But if everything, like, hey, we cleaned it, it's a candidate to reline as we did previously on Reed Street, that would be the 135. Now, to do the same thing we just described, including Bayard, you're looking at the options at the bottom, which would be the 478. Oh, I'm sorry, I see what you did now. 478 for everything. 225 just for McKinley. I'm sorry. McKinley, Bayard, 90. Okay, everything would be 478. Okay, so if we're just going to do McKinley, clean, televise, and reline existing infrastructure would be 135. For just McKinley, if we have to excavate, remove, and replacing time with new plastic pipe would be 253. If we were doing everything,
Yeah, it's either, so. The first step is there.
I see what you're saying. Yes. So the 135 would be just McKinley. And that's if we were to clean, televise, and able to reline. Just McKinley would be the 135. And that again would take you from structure 26 all the way down to 59.
But what happens if you finally determine that there's no connection between 26 and 27?
Well, I believe there is a connection. However, we're not sure if it goes to 27 or 29. So perhaps your as-built may help me with that. I'm not sure, but we know there's a pipe coming out of structure 26.
Okay.
But because we were not able to access these other structures that are highlighted in kind of that brown highlight I can't, that's why if you notice, the pipe's kind of going to nowhere, because it's heading in the general direction where it connects to either one of those structures. We just don't know. So until we can complete the cleaning and know that whatever happens, we'll address it, we'll be able to determine where it connects. We know there is a connection. We're just not sure which structure, so I won't offer that because I really don't know. Like I said, if I don't know, I won't show, because I don't want to have you say, well, Remington and Verdict said it connects, we're not sure. So all we do know is there is a structure coming out of 26 heading down the foot of that. So, but that would be included in that cost. You know, depending on which structure does connect. That would be, so the relining, if it is a candidate for relining, that would be your 135, just for McKinley. If we had to excavate, remove, and replace all of that, that's where you're coming at 250. For McKinley only, yes, I apologize, I'm now looking at the chart.
So for McKinley only, which means not for marshland. Right? When you said McKinley only,
For McKinley only, we're talking
down
about,
to 30, 31.
we're talking like,
Oh, all the way down through the marshland. So fully excavate and replace,
if we had to replace the pipe,
225,
be 253.
253.
253 from here to there. That's if you have to rip it out, and put in new.
Gotcha.
And we
And
wouldn't
if you
use
can
the
reline the whole thing, then it'd only be 135.
135.
Gotcha.
That's correct.
Lost me, so I had to.
I know, yes. It's
Yeah.
all over.
Can you step back?
I'm sorry.
Get a picture. Thank you.
And again, I was asked to provide both versions, both options, because we just don't know. And the last thing I wanted to do is we start cleaning and pulling out debris, and the integrity of that pipe starts to collapse. Now we have a road reconstruction. That's where we kind of stopped, and we wanted to kind of weigh our options to see which way.
The worst case option for all of McKinley is 253.
253 for just McKinley from the highway.
From the
That's if
highway.
you're reconstructing.
That's the worst case option.
That would be
If you
your-
could reline it for 135. But you've already found out you've run into debris that's degrading the pipe, so it looks like it's going to be replaced, not relined, right?
Possibly, but yeah, this is where I wish SPS was here. Oh, you are here. Found the place. Good. When I talked to Matt, you might get Charles, thank you. Charles, one of the things that Matt discussed with me was I asked him the same question. Would you say it's still worth investigating the pipe and cleaning it out? At what point would you determine, like, we gotta stop and take the
It all just depends what this other pipe is. The only way to find out is to do something.
because we weren't able, the gray area from structure 30 to 59, you weren't even able to get in. So, I mean, it was like concrete. I mean, it was, plus, I know we're gonna need generator permit. That's all marshaling. So that was another thing. So, and that figure, by the way, includes.
Okay, so,
That 253 does have DENREC permits.
so if worst case scenario for McKinley, all of McKinley, including the marsh, is 253.
That's what we estimate.
So if we're going to approve something, Jim, if that option were to be approved, then we'd have to approve the 253 to
Right.
cover ourselves in
In
case.
the event.
You're spending
We're
at
there.
least the 135 or a portion of that just to determine and do the cleaning.
Well, we wouldn't want to start determining to do the cleaning unless we know we can complete the project. So 253 would be what we would need to approve if we went with that option.
I would agree.
Yeah,
That,
We go high, and if in the event that we get lucky,
right.
Right.
we're safe.
if we do this option, does that include,
It includes that.
Well-
is that different?
It would. And I think Chuck, you would agree with,
Yeah.
I think Chuck might agree. I think a portion of 135 to clean and investigate should be allocated. It's not that the 253 includes the 135. A portion of the 135 would have to be expended to do an investigative cleaning to determine, you know what? Let's stop. We got to do the 250.
But it would still would only be maximum of 253, right?
If you're.
That's what we're saying here. If we go McKinley only, the full option of replacing, it would be 253.
I would say yes, because I went high on the estimate just because that's what I was asked to do for budgeting purposes.
Okay.
We're gonna have to do some investigative cleaning to determine
Okay, I got you. Yeah. Kim,
the integrity of the.
can you explain to me, which option are you talking about right now? Jim?
I'm talking about option option one, clean, televise, and relying existing infrastructure. And two is to remove and replace. I assume that the where's it? I thought talking about the Bayer, I thought the 478 would be, I guess I don't know.
Oh, no, that's all right. I mean, that's no problem because I got confused over the whole thing too. It's no big deal. But right now we're saying that we know one thing for sure about McKinney. The max is 253.
Right.
And that's what we want to probably go with to cover the in case.
Well, I'll tell you, to interpret Jim's chart here, the 478 is all of McKinley from structure 26 to the bay and the structures that we identified on Baird, which I believe are.
It's underneath what he put up, yeah.
I'm sorry, Jim.
That's the total price for both projects.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the orange here, I think, Bill.
Right.
So we're talking about the 478 is the orange and McKinley to remove and replace and reconstruct.
Right, total maximum 478.
Total. That's for both streets to rip it out and put in new. If everything was a candidate for cleaning and relining, for the orange on Baird and for the McKinley down to the bay was 2.25.
Yep.
If you're just talking McKinley for the same thing, that's where you get into the first numbers.
Right.
This for relining was 135, reconstruct was the 253. Is really the best way to interpret that, if that helps.
Is there a financial advantage with equipment, personnel to doing both projects at one time?
Good question.
Is there a big savings?
That's a great question.
There is a savings. How much, I don't know, but obviously, if you're there doing it all at one time, the crews, the equipment's there at one time versus having to leave and come back. I can't tell you what that savings or the extra expense would be to do it at different times. There's other mitigating circumstances such as, traffic, accessibility, weather. We want to kind of do this type of work early in the year before your season starts, as well as take advantage of the low tides. I don't know that figure, but I can tell you, yes, obviously, if you can do it all in one shot, it's better economically than if you.
So if we did them both at the same time, it'd be cheaper than the 478. If we did them all at the same time.
Well, these are budgetary numbers.
Right.
so that's a real-
But that's what he's asking. If we did it all at one time, we would save some money.
You potentially could save some.
Okay. At least with the
What's the figure in
inspector,
it?
your inspector.
My inspector only be here once. So there you go.
That's what I mean.
See that?
That's $5,000 right there,
There
we
you
say.
go. Right.
Jim, could I ask the town manager a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. What's in the fund now?
So 573,000.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't even say it right there, I apologize. I gotta tell you, we'd be crazy not to, as long as we have a significant amount of money left over, we'd be crazy not to approve the whole thing all at one time. And that way, if they have to stop because of weather, we've got a commitment, we don't have to come back into meeting and vote extra money, et cetera, or most likely.
Now, keep in mind, if I can interrupt there, sir, we may find out McKinley needs to be reconstructed, but Baird's are relining.
Right, so it's
Now you
still
have
be
a
cheaper.
combination of numbers that, that 478 might be, conservative less.
But if we approve the 478 and the whole pot, if we did the whole thing, we'd be well ahead of the game and still have a significant amount of money in the fund for infrastructure.
Sure.
Now, I will tell you, I'm going to add this other caveat, Bill and I spoke about this. After we do this work, it's important that you maintain it.
Yeah.
You do
That's our
annual
problem.
cleaning, because we don't want to get back in that soup again. That's why we're dealing with Reed Street.
Right.
With those outfalls. Because you got, I'd say at least twice a year, check them quarterly. SPS performs that as well. And I think you have equipment, potentially.
Possibly with the county or with the city of Rehoboth.
Yes. That's very important. It's like, hey, you buy a car, you never change the oil, the car's not gonna run.
That's right, and that money should be approved when they approve the budget, the yearly budget for the town, so that it's approved ahead of time. And if they want to take out the infrastructure, they can come to committee, but I think that's normal maintenance and upkeep, not what the infrastructure was intended for. So that way, all of that would be covered.
I agree. I mean, the thought that, 573, the number we're just looking at provides us, some cushion, potentially some savings as well. It's going to cost us some money to maintain. And if you don't take care of what you have, it's not going to remain nice and shiny. I'm doing a renovation of my house now, and of course, things don't go to plan. So we should probably have an idea that there's going to be a % of things that don't go to plan. But the budget looks like we have that in the event that, we get into, I'm going to be very honest, 59 scares me. I mean, that is something that I don't know if the state might be able to come in. I know that comes into a little bit of potential state, Ernie and Pete might be able to help us with, but 59 scares me. And I think we need to make that a huge priority.
I concur with that because that's that mystery on them. We don't know what we're going to find. We weren't able to get back there.
Correct.
And, we can't get excavators back there. That's the unknown. So you're right. Any cushion is probably going to be used there.
And I would say, the 478, I personally feel okay with it, but who knows what's going to happen with 59. And I think if we get in front of this with the state and have them a part of this with us as best as they can, it might help us in the long run.
But if we approve the 478, if they help us, and if it's less, we still have money.
That's correct. That's correct.
We're still ahead of the game.
And that goes, I would say that rolls right into our quarterly or biannually maintenance of
Jim,
59.
can I make a motion?
Yeah.
I don't mean to rush things through.
Before you make the motion, I want to just ask Kevin about something that sort of bugs me on McKinley. Kevin,
Yes, sir.
there's the wetland at the end of McKinley.
Yeah.
From 31, there's an outfall just at the head of the wetland.
Right beyond that picket fence, the rail fence.
I've seen the pipe that ends right there at the head of the, I don't know if you boys have observed that or not.
Yes, in fact, if I remember correctly, Jim, there's a split rail fence that comes across here and it's just on the other side. And and I believe it's backed up with debris and
It's
marsh
grown up.
and stuff. Yeah.
Also, this pipe to the outfall of 59 appears to be broken right at the head of the Could that be made into an outfall, just like the one over here,
And abandon
and
this?
eliminating that system? That's something to think about.
That's absolutely something to think about. And I'll tell you that what, it will probably save you money. It'll probably, as long as whatever permitting is required, that we're allowed to do that, I can't see why we wouldn't be. That is certainly an option that will be easier to maintain and save some money down the road. So absolutely, Jim, I think we should look at that, and I will look at that for you, because we can have both axles kind of in parallel right here, and it's all into the marshland anyway. So we definitely want to make sure Denrec's fine with that. And incidentally, my druthers right now, I believe this is probably a total reconstruct and redesign. I believe this is a candidate for relining. So I think you're going to get a combination of both versions here. So I think the 478 is going to cover you. But just like he had mentioned, I believe we've got, that 59 is going to, that's kind of a black hole.
Well, you have two options. Either way, it's still 478.
Right, but if we take Jim's
Might be right.
consideration, that might solve that problem right off the bat, so that's definitely something to look
Yeah, so either way, I'd like to make a motion that we approve up to $478,000. Excuse me, $1,000 to cover the projects that we just mentioned on both Baird and McKinley.
I have one quick question on that. So you're talking about eliminating this pipe and having just these two pipes then, or we're just one?
No, right now, there's, and it's not shown because we couldn't identify it and see it, but Jim's right. Right here along Hayden, there's a split rail fence that
Yeah.
kind of goes here.
Mhm.
Right on the other side of the fence, there is an outfall. It might even be a pipe bed that comes off of structure 31 and it just terminates here and goes into the marshland. What Jim's proposing is, why don't we do the same thing parallel right into the marshland beyond that fence area, which is already dedicated right away. We don't go out to the bay. We end it here and have it just perk into the marshland too. So this would actually be abandoned. So you'd have two shorter or stub pipes going to an outfall that would end here, not even deal with that. This would have to be removed, but you're done. I would still check with DENREC to make sure that that's permissible. And the other thing Bill and I were speaking of before the meeting is looking at your stormwater master plan, stormwater report. Your outfalls are working overtime. There's a lot of effluent going in there. Stormwater wise. So the other thing you have to consider, Jim, is depending on the volume of water, and that'll be determined if this pipe, say, connects here, you're taking runoff from SR1, you're going to get a lot of turbidity coming in here. And
What was the reason for designing it that way to begin with? I mean,
so you don't have an erosion. You're not eroding anything.
Well, that might be still the reason to replace it.
Out to the bay.
Yeah.
That's why we have to talk to DENREC to make sure that we're not going to disturb. Now, I will tell you, plant life is very resilient. I mean, back in the day, they used to rip out all the plant life, put in riprap and gabbing and stone. Now they're leaving it because that does a better job than the stone at most times. So nature will preserve itself, if you will. So, but we have to make sure that, Jim, that is a good option. I like that button because you just do away with this. But there may be a reason that we have to research why they wanted to discharge all the way out to the bay. We have to
Might be
determine
too
that.
much for that area to absorb.
Or erosion, you may wash this out.
Right.
And your bay may now come up to here. You don't need that. So that's something that we have to research. So I have to calculate how much runoff is coming off of SR1 because
Well, that's all in the details of the overall motion. I'm still keeping my motion in case there's a second, then we can discuss.
Can I ask another question? So when we have flooding and the bay is flooding into that wetlands, what effect does that piping have and that runoff have?
well, let me answer it this way. Right now, and I don't know for how long, it's not doing anything anyway.
The pipe hasn't. been
Right, that pipe has been full and it's not carrying any water out. So if anything, whether we replace this out to the bay or we're permitted to do what Jim suggested, you're gonna get better flow that's going to get it off of your pervious or impervious surfaces better than it's already doing anyway. So right now, this area is taking the full brunt anyway. There's
Oh,
nothing
yes, it
traveling
is.
through the pipes. Now, here's what we have to calculate. Once these are cleaned out, and which you're finding out on Reed, and it flows much better, it will be discharging. But right now, it's just sitting there. There's nothing coming out of the pipes in its present state. So we'd have to determine what impact that would be once it's working. But at one time, it was flowing, and it worked. So
basically, but what you just said then is, because living down that area, and I
Sure.
see this whole area flooding badly.
Yes.
Is those outfalls are all just releasing water right here without that pipe, which is basically happening now. We're gonna end up with the same flooding.
right now, this isn't carrying any water here. It's collecting rain, what have you, and it's pooling here and then slowly perking or flowing or receding to the bay or into the ground. Now, once this is clear and it's catching the water and flowing, it won't flood here. It'll discharge here like it used to.
Exactly. But what you had just mentioned, Jim's idea was disconnecting this, and then so everything flows out at these
From there.
right there. So which is currently, sounds like it's happening right now, and that's a major issue down there.
Well, right now, this should be flowing out to the bay. It's not carrying any.
I understand that.
So what he's suggesting is, instead of replacing this all the way to the bay, can we move the outfall back here? So it discharges into the marsh lane here and naturally finds its way to the bay.
And I've got a very simple question. Sea rise, tides, stormwater, it's, flooding is what it is. It's going to happen. My question is, if we were able to cancel 59 and put an outfall there, where does the water go? And how long does it take?
Yeah.
The water's going to go to the bay, but instead of being discharged directly at 59, it's going to either perk or find its way to the bay.
So
Is it going to find its way down Hayden Road? And on the other side of the marsh, though,
You got it
that's
now, right?
That's
That
what's
I would
happening.
that's what's happening now. And
that's what's happening now. The marsh overflows into the property on the south side, on the north side, and down Hayden Road. So what impact will that have on what we see happening now?
I would have to look at a topography map first. From what you're describing, and unfortunately, I don't have it with me, but I will look at one. This is probably a low spot that goes this way.
Oh, it's low.
So instead of this way, it does this way, but it probably does more something like this.
It does.
It's exactly
So
what it
when
is.
it backs up, that's where nature's going to take it, and it's
Better leave that
gonna
pipe
flow that
there.
way.
And I would assume that's probably why Denrec is wanting that pipe to run all the way out there, because
Which we're probably, as we're analyzing this, Jim, unfortunately, we're probably answering our question. That's why they want it discharging out. And why you're getting that flooding now is because there's nothing carrying out of this pipe
And
now.
in the 20 years that I've lived there and experienced it, it has gotten worse. So what you're
Right.
saying about it being totally blocked makes sense to me, having witnessed it over a 20-year
And one of the
period.
things I would do is I would look at a topography map with the contours and determine where your high and low spots are. And from what you're describing, that's probably what it's probably doing this.
Oh,
So,
Everything feeds into Reed.
and then it's going to back up and flood that. So,
The other thought I had, and I'll just throw this out there, I don't want to muddy the waters, but I walked over there and I wondered if DNREC or they don't want us in the marsh because of the environmental issues, is it possible to put a pipe in the parking lot that abuts on that north side of the marsh? A new pipe, and well, which is property of the Lions Club, and you would need their permission, of
it
course.
needs like an easement.
Right,
to access that.
and they're,
So if I'm understanding you, it's like abandoning this and maybe putting a structure here.
that's what
And then
I
flowing
just
out this
wondered.
way?
I'm not an engineer. I just looked at it and I thought, if it's gonna wreck the environment and, the Lions Club has been very generous. They're very community minded. If there was a way to work with them to use that, I don't know what impact it would have but, you know, after it's covered, it's just the edge of a parking lot. Right now, you know, cars run in there and that's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
You can put what they call we call it an E inlet, which is like a yard drain that you would put in a flat surface like a parking lot. And then depending on the grade that you would need and the surface material here. And you get an easement granted by the Lions Club, which like you said, they're probably cooperative, and you avoid dealing with the marshland. That's certainly an option. However, that's not the 478.
You know, they're
my-
obviously not, but I, you know, and while they are.
But sure, you can do anything.
And I know that would probably take a big vote from their membership, and I know that that can be a long time in happening, but it just
But
occurred
don't
to me.
forget, it would also help them if they have any parking lot drainage issues. If you're offering them a drain.
They don't.
Oh, and my fear with that is, we're just pushing water to somebody else's problem. And if we can get this repaired and we get the rest of McKinley squared away, it'll do its job. This is just over a mile town. We don't have much space to move water, and we're pretty waterlocked. So I think probably the best solution is to review with DENREC to get them to tell us what we should do with 59, because, you know, as things change and we get new product, it might be the result that we need. So my fear is that we just move water to somebody else's location, whether it's the Lions Club or, you know, any other business or anybody else's property.
And I wasn't trying to move water. I just thought another pipe would move the water to the bay. That's all.
Right, but you know, if we look at especially that little area, high tides, high sea rise, high storms, it puddles bad. And when I say puddle, I'm being nice. You know, it floods. So I think
Oh, it does.
I think we need to figure out the best course for what we have, because with it working, I think we're going to be in great shape with all the other projects that we're doing.
And it worked at one time.
Correct.
It's just like I
We didn't take care of it.
Well, like you get a nor'easter that came through and you had those nice 3 outfalls at the end of reading, they got all backed up with sand. House failed, and I remember I was here when they were doing the final punch list. You know, construction, they're punch listing it out. Those 3 outfalls suspended into the bay, there was all water underneath. They were literally suspended into the bay. I came back after like March of this year, and 2 of them are covered in sand. I was blown away. And Bill said we had a nor'easter come through here, and the breakwater was put too low, too far out, which we want to correct now, and excavate that and keep that basically get that depression down and keep it clean. You'll have to do that with 59.
Absolutely.
Make sure that stays, get it jetted out and make sure that that's flowing. Because, you know, it's like I use the analogy with the car, you never change the oil, but that's just going to seize up, and all it took every 3,000 miles.
The last question I have, the 478, does that include, obviously you talked about the DENREC review.
Yeah.
Does that also, all of your review process to get us to where we have a solid number? I mean, is there going to be more fees associated with that 478, or is that number going to take care of all the fact finding, what we can do, what we can't do? Here's where we are.
Yeah, that force it. Basically what I did, I took $250 of linear foot.
Right.
Which was your dewatering, your engineering, your design. What it doesn't cover is, like you would say, if DENREC throws me a curveball that I'm not anticipating, don't know what they're gonna do. Based on my experience, I factored that in, but it could be beyond what I anticipated.
Would you mind amending your motion
It
on?
hadn't been seconded yet.
I'll second it with the potential change to have us be able to review if there's, I hate to say curveball, but if DENREC comes back to us and says,
Unexpected consequences.
that's your favorite term. Yeah, I would feel more comfortable, because if we say, this is your number and we're going to, you know, hold you to it, and they come back and say it's 15, 16, 18 grand more or whatever.
I approve your intended
Thank you.
change.
Thank you.
I don't, can we say what the motion is again then?
Well, the original motion was up to 478,000 for the entire Bayard Avenue and McKinley Avenue project. But it would, with the intention, and they can put it into the motion, or they can put it as an aside as they do the minutes of the meeting, with the intention that if anything pops up, unintended consequences pop up, that we would review those and add to it or take away.
So in the event that Denrec or somebody came in and said, it's gonna be an extra 20 grand, we'd have time to be able to review so that we could then take it to the commission for them for their review consideration.
So that's the new motion, the amended motion.
I would second that.
Motion been made and seconded.
Yeah. And any further discussion there? We sort of had the discussion before.
All in favor?
Aye. I think that really helps the town.
I do too.
Oh, I think so too. We know about the problem on McKinley, and we have avoided addressing it because it's very difficult. And I am grateful that we are finally going to be doing something to try to address this issue.
That's why, if you recall, when we agreed last time to get each, we knew McKinley was going to be a special issue. And you know, I hope they don't say, hey, you know what, you can't use your. I'm not saying that's the case, but
They might.
anything's possible. You know, they may say, we don't want you, we don't want you doing working with that. You may have to go to the line.
But since they originally put it in and we just took over responsibility for it, the 83 agreement, well, then they might be more than willing to let us replace it,
Right.
not put new, but replace.
Well, and I think if you look at the, right, and if you look at the past, I mean, that street was a cause of great debate. And I think that us being able to put together something that the commission can review, that it's not going to prevent flooding. There's just no if and, it's not going to, this will not prevent flooding, but what it does help with is getting water back to where it belongs, not on our streets, not in our yards, back into the bay and
As quickly as it can.
absolutely, absolutely.
That's it. Sometimes, the tide is gone, but
We can only do so
there's
much.
nowhere to go.
Exactly. And now we're given somewhere to go back to. So
And I can tell you right now, it's not.
And I can tell you, that's true.
We can agree on that one. We're in agreement there. That one.
Absolute agree.
Okay, moving on, item 4 on the agenda is a discussion, possibly going on a set of priorities pertaining to projects that will address flooding in the town. Do you want to talk about that today, or do you want to table it?
Well, I talked to the town manager earlier today, and he has a very quick list of priorities he'd like to present to us. But I think it might be best if you take your time and decide fully what your final list of priorities are on streets. And then I would hope that we would, in the next meeting, vote to accept the priorities and approve those priorities. And then so that the next time, all we have to do is approve the money for each project as we go along. It might clear the pathway for this process to move forward instead of coming to us and discussing it every damn time we have another project to come up.
and we just had a big discussion about $478,000. I think it might be best is to get an itemized list of where our budget looks, where we stand moving forward. And then, if we had growing up, it was the red light, green light, game. I think if we had a phase of things that were, cost sensitive within our budget, so that in the event something major happens, we can take care of ourselves. Because if we get ourselves too jammed up, we've seen that happen before in this little town.
The problem for the town is that by edict of the commissioners, every time we decide to spend any money out of that fund, we have to come to a public hearing with us and then a public hearing with the commissioner. So if we can ease the public hearing with us, still have it, but ease the process so we approve a number of things.
Correct.
in one public hearing.
Correct.
So, and come down to no, I don't think we need to discuss it today. I think we need to get the town manager,
Okay,
tell us what his final priorities are and get us to agree or disagree with them. Are you all right? You want to do it today or you want to?
Well, no, two of the projects are the ones you just decided to spend the $478,000, and that was McKinley and Baird. And then after that, and I can come back with something after I talk to
Right.
Remington on the berm at the end of Baird in Bellevue. It's going to need to have probably some work done on it, so it doesn't fail.
My thought is, maybe a focus point for us and moving forward with this committee is to come up, and this is a very simple term. What is our committee's zero number within our budget? What's a number that we have as our own little reserve so that we don't go below that in the event of a nor'easter, a tragic event where we need to dip into that less than zero number. So I would hope that we can have those conversations moving forward to build us our own little nest so that we can protect the future.
Yeah, we're gonna have about what, 97,000 left over
95.
after,
95.
Right.
95,000 after this.
Correct.
So we should build on that.
We should, yeah, whether it's 95, 105 or 110, that's our zero.
am I correct that the infrastructure fund receives 20% of the building permit fees?
I can't, I don't know, but I think that's right.
I
Gary-
recall that from the past.
Gary, Commissioner Perkins would know, he's on the line.
Yeah, that is correct. It does, 20% of the building permit fees go to the infrastructure fund.
And it wasn't something else merged in with that, Gary?
There was some reorganization, so we added some money to the infrastructure account, but from another reserve account, but that was a one-time addition.
Oh,
And I guess the only other question I would have in terms of the 573, does that include, wasn't there a recent approval of some expenditures like $27,000 or $30,000? And I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, so 26,400 was recently approved by the committee, but we are going to use money from, well, I hope to use money from the American Rescue Act.
Okay.
The commissioners are going to vote on that amount this Thursday, and if they approve it, that 26,400 will come out of the American Rescue Act and not out of the infrastructure budget.
That'd be awesome.
Is that the new infrastructure bill that was signed?
This is from the American Rescue Act. We had attorneys review the request that I put in, and they said it meets the guidelines, the federal guidelines for expenditure on stormwater.
Okay.
So there is an opportunity for some additional funds from the American Rescue Act to assist with some of these projects, but not in large amounts, probably maybe in the amount of another $50,000.
50,000 is 50,000. We need to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I whatever we need to do. I mean, that's huge.
Every little bit helps.
Especially. There's been a lot of building in this town. I mean, and the one thing though is times change, life changes, and we cannot, I feel like I'm stressing the issue of saving. You know, as much as we like to spend and make this town the best it can be, we should definitely look for ways that we can gain help and gain success from the state, but also, you know, protect our future, because that's all we have.
Okay, so we're just gonna let this
yeah.
slide, okay. Well, we're down to member comments now.
I
How
mean,
did we make our comments?
I know, yeah, I'm proud of the meeting we had today. We understand what this town needs. We understand that flooding is a real thing, and it's not going to be corrected by this, but we're going to help mitigate quickly. And we also are going to protect a lot of important people.
I'm also grateful that we have finally come to this point, because I've been on this committee for a few years and we have talked about this. I'm happy we finally have gotten to an approval to really address it.
I want to thank Bill for finding those funds with the, what is it again, the American?
American Rescue Act, the town got $214,000. It's based on a census that was done, that the town only has approximately 400 people. So unlike Clayton, Delaware, which has 3,200 people year round. They got 1.9 million. Whereas we go up to 30,000 during the summer, but they do it just on year round, which is only 400. So we only got 214,000.
Maybe one day.
So,
Thank you very much.
yeah.
I appreciate that.
And you'd be a far stretch to find 400 people in this town during the winter.
And I think I once heard that there were only 300, so I think we went up 100.
We counted 350, 340 the last census 10 years ago. We claimed that. And,
Okay,
and I guarantee that there weren't 100 people in this town 10 years ago.
I do have one thing. So the 26,400 for the Reed Street project, I signed the contract after it was voted on by the commissioner. So we have told Remington to start on that project at the end of Reed Street. Whether the commissioners vote to approve the 26,400 from the American Rescue Act, or whether we take that from infrastructure, the money, the contract's been signed and they've been told to move forward on it. We hope to start January 7th, depending on the tides. In the house at the end of the street, got to be moved.
Hopefully.
Jim?
Okay, I want to thank the committee for a very lively discussion of the subject at hand, and that Kevin for being here to really explain things, but really added to the meeting to have him available to
Absolutely.
explain the projects that we were looking at. Going forward, if we were to say the next meeting will be discussing and acting on the town priorities, but the timing for that, I have to, this kind of a question, because early January, I'm having a cochlear implant, my right ear, and I'm going to be over in Baltimore where the work is being done for quite a bit of the time in January. I don't know how much time I'll be here in town as to when we can schedule a meeting, but I'll try to keep everybody up to date as to what my availability is. And I guess, is there a way to compress the notice requirement for a meeting? Like, we had to get the agenda in and post it at least 8 days before the meeting. Maybe maybe that'll still work out if I can have a meeting. Like, I know I have to be so like I said, it's the 10th of January when I have the procedure. I may be over there until the following Monday, which would be the 7th or so. And there's about a 2-week window in there where I may be back here in town. So we'll look at that.
Jim, do you think we're going to need a meeting in January?
could it wait till February?
I don't know, maybe not. If we're just talking about the town priorities, maybe we could let the meetings go
February.
until
Why
sometime
don't
in
we do it
February.
in February?
Yeah, let's say February.
Okay, let's leave it like that.
Yeah. Good luck on your procedure.
Yes, absolutely.
Good luck on the procedure.
Yeah,
I had a friend of mine who had it put in, it worked very well.
well, all I hear is good comments.
Jim?
Thank you. A motion to adjourn the meeting,
I'll motion.
Second.
all in favor?